Okay, let's unpack this. What happens when the digital core of a nation's food system gets compromised? We're doing a deep dive today into something really vital, maybe even a bit alarming, actually. The recent data breach at the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, ICAR. And this isn't just, some abstract tech issue. This place is absolutely critical for India's agriculture. The scope of what happened, well, it's pretty unsettling.
It really is. And it's crucial, I think, for people to understand just how foundational ICAR is. It's basically the nerve center overseeing almost all agricultural education and research across India. Its role is just so integral. So when officials talk about losing crucial data, well, that's not just a technical glitch. Think about it. Critical crop data potentially manipulated. Years of research on, say, drought-resistant seeds stalled. That directly hits farmers. It hits national food supplies. It really becomes a matter of national security.
Right. And when did this happen? And what was sort of notable about the initial attack itself, so the breach was back in April. And what's striking, I think, is that it wasn't just like their main website or the central server in Delhi. They also managed to hit a key replication server down in Hyderabad.
Mm-hmm. The disaster recovery site.
Exactly, which is meant to be the live backup, for resilience. So this points to something more than a simple intrusion. It feels like a pretty sophisticated, multi-pronged attack.
Definitely suggests a higher level of planning, yeah.
So we know ICAR is foundational. We know the attack hit multiple key points. The next big question, the really worrying one, is what exactly was compromised? Because this is where the scope gets, well, alarming. We're talking seriously sensitive information. For starters, data related to recruitment. And not just any positions, everything from technical officers right up to deputy directors general.
Wow.
Yeah, plus confidential job applications. Think about the implications if that recruitment process is disrupted or the data lost. What does that do to finding the next generation of agricultural scientists?
It could create serious gaps down the line.
Exactly. And then there are detailed records from tons of ongoing research projects, years of scientific work just gone or exposed. Plus, valuable information submitted online by scientists, the raw data, their insights.
The core intellectual property, really.
Right. And to top it all off, even internal email communications were compromised. That raises huge questions about, collaboration, institutional memory, sensitive discussions being out there.
And if you trace where within ICAR this hit hardest, the digital attack specifically impacted some key bodies. You mentioned recruitment. Well, the Agricultural Scientists Recruitment Board, ASRB, that's their job, staffing all those critical roles. If ASRB's data is messed with, India could genuinely face a talent deficit in vital agricultural research areas for years.
That makes sense.
Then there's the Indian Agricultural Statistics Research Institute, IASRI. That's like the central hub for all the big agricultural data and analytics. If ISRI's data is compromised or unreliable, imagine government decisions on things like food subsidies or strategic grain reserves or even climate adaptation plans. They could be based on flawed information.
That's a scary thought.
It is. And finally, the National Academy of Agricultural Research Management, NAARM. Their whole focus is building up the human resource capacity, the leadership in agricultural research. So disruption there impacts the management, the very direction of the entire sector. What really stands out, I think, is how one cyber attack in what might seem like a niche area can just cascade outwards. It has these profound ripple effects across a whole national sector that frankly touches millions of lives directly.
So, okay, you've got this massive breach, a major institution, its main data center, its operational brain, basically and critically, its disaster recovery center, the fail-safe, the backup plan, both compromised. What's the immediate reaction? What do you do? Well, ICAR acted pretty fast. They set up a 6-member committee. And this committee seems to have a clear twofold job. First, dig deep. Investigate exactly why both the main data center and the disaster recovery center weren't functioning as they should have.
Find the root causes, yeah.
Exactly. And second, and this is arguably even more crucial going forward, they need to propose really robust measures to stop anything like this from happening again.
And stepping back, looking at the bigger picture here, the findings, the recommendations coming out of this committee, they're going to be vital, not just for ICAR itself, for strengthening its own digital defenses, but potentially they could serve as a kind of blueprint, couldn't they? Well, for other government organizations, especially those managing critical national resources, how can they better protect themselves against these kinds of cyber threats? It's really about learning the lessons from this specific breach and trying to build a more proactive, stronger security posture across the whole public sector.
So after all this detail, What does it really boil down to for you listening right now?
I think it's a really powerful reminder that data security,
Yeah.
it isn't just for banks or, defense contractors anymore. It cuts across every single part of our lives. Even something as sort of fundamental and earthy as the future of agriculture, it really shows how deeply interconnected our physical world is now with the digital one.
Absolutely. And this whole incident, it really throws up a broader question, doesn't it? In this world that's just getting more and more connected, where even something like the stability of a nation's food supply leans so heavily on digital systems. What other sectors are out there? Sectors that maybe seem low tech on the surface or just unexpected. What other sectors might be holding incredibly critical, yet maybe dangerously vulnerable data that we just haven't fully grasped or considered yet?